Morning, everyone, and thanks for coming. I'm starting today at 8:30, even though I know traffic was terrible, because we have a good crowd in the room, and people will come in as they can join us. I wanted to just start by saying I've got to leave at 9:15 today for a medical appointment, so I will slip out quietly, and Mark will take over, so you'll be in good hands. Updates as far as the select board goes. On Monday night, we held our second joint meeting with the school committee and the finance committee to talk about the FY26 budget, specifically the capital budget. Our hope is that when we go into town meeting, we are in agreement with our capital budgets going forward. So that's the goal, and hopefully as time moves on, we will expand that to also look at our operating budgets jointly. But for now, we're focusing on our capital. On Monday night, we also approved a pilot policy. Pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes. So it's a policy where we are going to ask our tax-exempt nonprofits within the town to contribute something towards the general fund for the services that the town provides. Fire, police, and some actually send kids to school in our school system. So we are going to start reaching out to them and seeing if we can begin a payment to the general fund. We also approved by a vote of 4-1 a continuation of the 10% residential tax exemption. I wanted to also let this community know that on December 3rd, we're having a training on First Amendment. And by that I mean, how do we keep discourse within town civil? How do we respect differences? How do we handle people that are sometimes somewhat aggressive while still protecting their First Amendment rights? I think this is important to us. I think it's going to become more and more important. So getting an understanding for how do we protect First Amendment rights of our, not just our citizens, but whoever shows up. Anyone who shows up has a right to film town officials, has a right to ask somewhat aggressive questions, and how do we handle that? So we have a training, and I think we're opening, it was originally just for the select board, but I'm opening it up to all boards and committees. I think it will be well worthwhile. It's an hour, December 3rd, 3 o'clock. It's a hybrid meeting. And then finally, I wanted to say that our next chair's breakfast, which I think is right before Christmas, Andrea, is it December 18th? Will be bistro style. We'll have even better food, and we can just mill around and talk to whoever you would like to talk to. So I think of it more as a social event, and everyone is welcome. So that will be December 18th. Okay, I'm going to stop there and start going around. Mark, do you want to report?
I'll just briefly mention that we have news this morning that the state has finally sent us the contracts for the MCI funding, so we're really pleased that that's coming through. The MCI Concord advisory board is in the process of developing an RFP for consulting services for the visioning, for the community outreach that needs to be done. Also, just really quickly, it's in $725,000, so in the full amount. So we really thank our legislative representatives who were able to secure this funding. It'll really help us facilitate a robust planning process that we hope you'll all participate in. The board is beginning to look at when the next large-scale community outreach meeting would be. Look for that mostly in January. And also another group that I'm involved with, and I'm not seeing the chair here, so I'll just mention the Warner's Pond Task Force is also going to be looking at all 3 of the proposals that have been under development as options on the December 17th meeting, as well as putting together a public forum to go over and familiarize the community with what the options are going to be for Warner's Pond that are going to be considered.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm Christina Kendrick. I'm the chair of the COA. And last night we had our budget and statistics meeting, our long meeting. So from that, we're going to proceed with our goals next month of where we are, how that affects our goals for the coming year. And then over the holidays, I'm going to work on getting now that we have our logo, I'm going to work on trying to get signage for the COA. So
Great.
the
Thanks,
applications. That's it.
Thanks, Christina. Sven?
Yes, Sven Weber, Chair of Public Works. Well, the biggest revolution we had were the new trash cans. So the new program rolled out. We originally had 3,300 subscribers. We now have 3,700 subscribers, so 400 new. About 45 of the existing subscribers asked for smaller recycling bins, which we deliver. One is still kind of even wants to have even smaller. So, but just if you hear in the press, that's about the statistic. 400 more subscribers, 45 got special treatment with smaller bins, and one is still kind of making noise. On other things, I think we're very close in getting, say, National Grid finalizing this piece over there. That is done, and then we can hopefully, before it's getting too cold, finalize the street here on Monument Square. And then on ongoing things, we're in preparation of looking at the stormwater budget and the stormwater fees. Remember on the last town meeting, the town approved the stormwater bylaw that would raise funds to finally take care of our stormwater infrastructure. We had an average kind of typically only $25,000 per year budgeted to keep the stormwater up, and it's failing left and right. And we scramble to find the money to A, repair what we have, and B, just maintain it and bring it up to standard. So there's a lot of other things, but these are the highlights.
DPW's busy. Paul?
Yeah, thank you. This morning I'm reporting for the 2229 Main Street Task Force and on behalf of Bert Flynn for the Community Preservation Committee. So
Great.
on the 2229 Task Force, pleased to let you know our report is done. It's being proofed. It's going to be voted on by the task force next Tuesday for release. Going to get it to the select board in December. And then in January, we'll be briefing the select board and scheduling a public hearing forum on that. So we'll release the report, put it online. So all that's kind of in motion, and a lot of work by a great task force. So that's that. So Community Preservation Committee met last night to start deliberating on the applications. I think Bert mentioned last time that we had 7. We were undersubscribed this year. We had 7 applications. And I think I can give you details if you want. The unique part of this year's CPC is we were undersubscribed with 7 applications, and our funding, we have available. We have $2.9 million worth of available funds. Just a brief education on that. There's 1.5% surcharge, tax surcharge. That's 1.7 million. The state matches part of that. This year they matched 18%, which is 300,000. There's when unspent monies in CPC are unspent, they come back to the CPC. So we had that for the old Christopher Heights program, which was there was 250,000 in recreation, open space that came back. So we have that. There was housing funds that came back. The Habitat for Humanity construction at Giroux Park, that money came back 240,000, which is being reallocated to housing. And from prior years, we had 455,000 unspent funds. So very unique that we're undersubscribed. Now, we've heard that there's going to be an avalanche of applications for next year, but it's a very unique situation that we have, and we're fortunate to be able to fund those projects. So that's kind of an update on CPC.
Paul, the 455 you mentioned, that's unrestricted? So it's
Yes,
not,
it's in
okay.
the general fund.
Great.
It's come back.
Okay.
So some go to the category where they're allocated.
Right, but this isn't.
We are also, one of the categories, historical preservation, we're undersubscribed this year, but we're committed to having at least 10% each year in each
Yes.
category, so we're going to take some money, put it in
Right.
in at least that amount to get up to 10%. So they're different buckets, but the good news is overall it's a lot of good funding for the future.
Great, good. Thank you. I'm gonna, wait.
It's probably a good idea to pick up one of those mics and pass it around, since I think we're using.
We will, yes.
Okay.
I'm going to stay
Just
on
to
the
keep
table
going.
for
Okay.
now. For now. So Andrea, is there anything you want to let us know about?
At the select board meeting
Yep.
coming up, we're going to do a summary of all the responses that we received on the surveys. So that'll be very interesting and obviously will be shared with the public.
Right. Also, the fact that Thanksgiving falls right before our next meeting.
It does, so I'll be circulating
Okay,
an
great.
email to let everyone know there are new deadlines for submitting any materials for the select board meeting on December 2nd, just so that you're aware.
Thanks. Thanks, Andrea. Mike?
Mike Lawson for the Economic Vitality Committee. We're working to finalize language on 2 proposed warrant articles that we'll be submitting. One about parking in the business districts, which would be eliminating parking requirements in the business district. That's for applications for businesses. And the second, accessory use in industrial areas. So, for example, if you make soap, you can sell soap in your store, that kind of thing. So we're working to try to finalize language, and so that's about it for me.
Great. Good. Thanks, Mike. Julie?
So yeah, just to echo what Mary started off with, we had a great meeting on Monday, just as a continuation as part of the capital planning process, trying a new thing and far more collaborative, which is great. As far as CCHS, and then I'll let Carrie speak to the CPS school district. We have a couple of things happening. We build our agendas and run a lot of our meeting based on our goals. So one of them is around campus completion. So the amenities building is one of the capital projects that we have. It's an area of focus. So we're trying to take the feedback we got last year and really try to really exhaust all options from a cost standpoint. So we've been working with our state representatives, both Representative Trahan, Simon Cataldo, Mike Barrett, and trying to see what kind of grants are available, especially from an ADA compliance standpoint. So really trying to exhaust that, working with both towns, Carlisle and Concord. And then last night, unfortunately, I couldn't make the meeting, but Carrie can update as needed. We did hear from the architect with some plans, so we had a chance to see what our options are, which is great. So that's been one piece. The second piece is, again, coming back to the goals. We want to, get as much feedback as possible from the communities. So we did commit to 3 coffee meetings in the different communities throughout the year. The first one is Alexa's going to be managing, I think, is December 4th. We still need to put that out there with a location and time and everything, but that's what we're earmarking for the Concord one. And then the Carlisle one we're going to look to do in January or February, and then we're going to do one in Boston as well. That Aisha, our METCO representative, will be running. And that's kind of the highlights. Anything else that I missed?
I think so.
Thanks, Julie.
Do you
Carrie.
want me to give a quick update on
Yeah.
amenities last night?
Sure. Yeah, whatever you think.
So last night, Gale and Associates presented on a proposal looking at the space that we have available for the amenities building, and they provided 5 different options with different price points for what is possible for that space. One was, or 2 of them were different iterations of like glorified porta potties. The second is modular units, and the third is a fixed, an actual designed and built facility. And interestingly, the middle option, the modular, which seems like the most reasonable, is actually the most expensive because we would need to bring in so many modular units that it would, the cost of adding these units up gets exorbitant. So I think that one was the most expensive at about 1.6 to 1.9. And then the glorified porta potties, which are like trailers, not like trailers, are trailers. They would be hooked up to plumbing. We would have to get permission from the town to call them permanent fixtures. So they are not currently allowable, but we could seek
Variance.
permission
Yeah.
to do that. Those are around $600,000, but they have a very much shorter lifespan, so they would be 10 years at most, and then they would be trashed. There's not even a use for them after that. And then the ones that are custom built there's a range between like 1.4 and 1.8. And so the committee ruled out last night option 2, which is the modulars. It just doesn't make sense to spend more on something that's less. The fixed cost, the actual custom built one is what is looking like the best option. That one has a 50-year lifespan on it. But we're still we have some questions that we posed to the administration to look into, to Gail, and we'll be talking about it. We're hoping to vote as a committee on a recommendation to bring to the capital planning group before the next meeting on the 17th. So we meet again on December 10th, and we'll bring that recommendation to the full group. So I think that's the update on that. On CPS, we had the middle school is chugging along. We are under budget at this point, which is really exciting, and on time. We have a very healthy contingency. So there's still a lot of work to do. Obviously, the finishing touches is where you see where there might be some errors or whatnot, the lockers being one of them. I don't know if you read in the bridge last week, the lockers were built too small. They looked very closely at what it would cost, what it would take to fix that, and the committee ultimately, not the school committee, the building committee ultimately decided to leave it as is. They will see what it's like to live with them, and if we have to fix it at a later date, we will. So that was going to be a pretty pricey fix, I think at $250,000 that they opted not to do. We also had a conversation last night about what the next steps are with surplusing Peabody back to the town. So I think we will continue those conversations, but it's looking at what it will cost to keep it just not essentially just keeping it up and running without the pipes freezing throughout the winter months. But we will likely surplus it back to the town in March, and then we will discuss with Mary, you all, about whose responsibility it is from there through the end of the year, through town meeting.
I think it's a town meeting vote, but we'll talk about that.
It is a town meeting vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the end.
It's not a select board decision. Okay.
And then the Thoreau School is doing a very big fundraising push for a new playground. This is going into the whole capital project that they're working on, campus beautification project. We're looking to CPC for some support, hopefully. Plus, we have some funding from an estate that we're putting towards it. We have some capital money that we're using, and then the parent community is working on raising an additional $500,000 to put towards a new playground. So if anyone's interested in donating or getting involved, there's information. I have information. But that's it for us.
That's a lot. Thank you. Lois, you want to go next?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Here.
Hi, I'm Lois Wassoff. I'm attempting to fill Eric Dahlberg's shoes as the chair of the Finance Committee. I'm the vice chair. Finance Committee has been busy lately, and this is the time of year when our particular focus is on doing the guidelines. We are working on our preliminary guidelines. We had a discussion at our last full meeting about approaches to the preliminary guidelines. Without going into a lot of detail, the way we develop the guidelines is a two-pronged approach. We start from the top down by looking at general economic factors, and then we get information from the budgeting units to work from the bottom up to understand what the needs are. And so we're trying to take into consideration the expectations and ability to pay of the town citizens, because it all comes from largely comes from residential property taxes, and the needs of the budgeting units. The part of the process we're in now is compiling the information from the budgetary units, and I'd like to compliment the schools and the town because the information has been very complete. There's been a transparency in the process, which we really appreciate. It helps us really think this through and come to what we hope will be good decisions for everybody. And that will be the focus of our next meeting, which is Thursday. The Finance Committee did participate in the capital meeting on Monday. I was not able to be there either physically or virtually. Carlin Reed, who is our vice clerk, was there, and I've gotten anecdotal reports. I haven't watched tape yet, and I don't have to say any more about it because it's been discussed that it was a very productive meeting, and it kicks off a process that's really important, which is coordinating the capital projects that will be going on in town. There are some huge projects coming on board, a lot of them related to town infrastructure issues, public safety and public works. And this process of thinking about things holistically and understanding everybody's needs is going to be critical to making sure it gets done right and is planned for properly. And FinCom will try to contribute as we can. I guess that is pretty much all that, I guess the only other thing I'd note is that one thing we've been looking at is the possibility of doing a joint guideline with the town of Carlisle with respect to CCRSD. And what the Finance Committee has discussed on that is we are continuing our process, but we're keeping Carlisle informed about our timeline. We have different, a somewhat different process, and we have different time constraints than Carlisle does. So we are conducting that process, keeping them in the loop so that at some point we can make a decision whether or not the two towns will be issuing a single guideline for the regional school district. But whatever that ultimate decision is, the Finance Committee, the Concord process is going to continue, and the guidelines will be released in a timely fashion in December. So that's where we are.
Great. Thank you, Lois. I'm going to go to the people who are online. I'm going to start with Sarah Grimwald. Do you want to speak?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. I'm disappointed I wasn't able to make it in person there today, so I'm looking forward to the December get-together. I'll hopefully try and make that. Natural Resources Committee, I don't actually have any updates. Everything's moving along smoothly. It was helpful to hear from Mark the update from Warner's Pond Task Force. So thank you for that. We're looking forward to seeing what happens there. But otherwise, nothing to report for today.
Thank you, Sarah. Who else is online? Randy. Randy Kring? Morning.
Hello. Yes. Hi. So yes, I'm with the Board of Health, and updates for you. The needs assessment survey that we've sent out or made available to the town has closed, and so the data is being analyzed now, and we should have some hopefully useful information from that to guide our further efforts for promoting public health in the town. Our health director also has been meeting with local food establishments to discuss plans for Concord 250. So that's underway to make sure that things are set with health regulations for that event. COVID-19 tests are available at the Council on Aging, in the library, and at the Health Division. So please share the word that if anyone wants to pick up a COVID test, they can get them from those locations. And then there was the town of Concord's been working with, or the Health Division has been working with the town of Elliott, and has hired a mental health clinician specifically to serve Concord residents. The Health Division is contributing towards that clinician's salary, and they just started onboarding last week, and we'll be conducting outreach for them to start connecting with patients in the community, hopefully in early to mid-December.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
I think Susan dropped off. Is Susan still there? No, she dropped off. Linda, I see you. Are you representing a committee or a task force, or are you listening today?
Morning, I'm just observing, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go around the room. Keith, do you want to? I think you need to take a mic.
Keith Bergman, Chair of the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. First, just to follow up the CPC report, thank you for the favorable nod for the $740,000 that the trust has requested for this year. Thanks to the town as well for the $500,000 in a town ARPA funding that we're going to get by the end of the fiscal year. That will bring our total, that together with our uncommitted balance gives us about $2.7 million to do whatever we can with affordable housing. This is an unusual year. That kind of money is coming in. We think for the future it's more likely we'll maybe just see $500,000 a year from CPC. We're still going to try to pursue a real estate transfer fee to fund the trust so that we don't have to rely on town funding for that. And we're working hard to keep all the housing groups working together and pulling in the same direction. Our next quarterly meeting of the Concord Housing Roundtable is Tuesday, December 10th at 5 p.m. on Zoom. That's when the 7 groups, the 4 committees with housing in their name, plus the Select Board, Planning Board, and CPC get together to jointly monitor progress in the housing production plan. We have a long list of things that we talk about. Some of it is funding, some of it is regulatory, but some of it is opportunities with things like surplus properties, keeping our eye on MCI Concord, 2229 Main Street, Peabody Middle School, and any 91B Main Street surplus state property. A long list, and we want to be part of the town's decision-making matrix so that the needs of housing can be articulated, and that when decisions get made on behalf of the entire town, that we're all moving forward. So appreciate that opportunity.
Thank you, Keith. Janet.
Janet Miller. I'm co-chair with Brad Hubbard Nelson of the Climate Action Committee. I want to report that we're in the process of updating the Climate Action and Resilience Plan, which was last prepared in 2020. So we'll see what we've achieved, what goals need to be updated. Where last time we had the support of Kim Lundgren Associates as a consultant, and we're hoping to have similar support again. The other thing I wanted to mention was the Doug White Fields. $100,000 in ARPA funds were set aside to study the Doug Whitefield replacement, and the Climate Action Committee has a position that grass fields are preferable from the point of view of especially environmental and financial risk associated with artificial turf, including PFAS pollution, microplastic pollution, and the cost, potential, the high cost of replacing the fields. So Brad and I met with Carrie Lafleur and other town officials to propose a process for planning and to explain our opposition to artificial turf.
Thank you, Janet. Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan Schmid, co-chair of the Ag Committee. Too dry.
It's too dry.
People talking about maybe getting irrigation going just to keep the cover crops growing, and garlic. We're planning a spring forum and trying to look for a speaker, thinking that it should have something to do with maybe colonial farming and a retrospective. We just need to find a good speaker. So if anybody has any ideas, you'd be interested. And we're working on a new logo. So those are the main things, but thanks.
Thank you, Dan.
Good morning. Eric Moore, Town Meeting Study Committee. So we're working towards wrapping up a block of work around recommendations for streamlining town meeting, and in terms of sort of working through the citizen petitions that we were sort of charged with also addressing, the things like remote participation. So we'll I think, make our recommendations in our meeting coming up this Monday, and then I expect that when we meet with the select board 2 weeks from now-ish, we'll be able to talk a little bit about that. We're beginning to have conversations with town staff around some of the recommendations that we have in mind, to understand sort of obstacles to implementation, or concerns around implementation. That those conversations are just starting. Also, we're very interested at this point in meeting with committees that the planning board, the select board, and the Finance Committee all hold pre-town meeting hearings. But we'd also, and so we'd like to meet with them to understand from the committee's perspective their concerns and ideas around town meeting. As well, we'd like to meet with, in particular, the school committee or a representative from the school committee, and possibly from the Public Works, committees that basically produce, that have articles that come into town meeting, to understand again, from your perspectives, I think, how well town meeting is serving your work, what ideas you have, and also to sort of talk a bit about some of the things that we have in mind, so that we get some feedback that way as well. So we'll look to schedule those opportunistically. Yeah, I think that's it. So really looking forward to having conversations with both town staff around things that we have in mind, and as well with committees, especially leading into the sort of the hearing season. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Nancy.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nancy Nelson. I'm representing the Concord Historical Commission. Our chair, Alan Bogosian, can't be here this morning. The commission is busy. Front and center right now is the development of a historic preservation plan, working with Heritage Strategies. Public forum was held on November 14th that had a good and lively turnout. And that, in addition to feedback from various focus groups, is beginning now to be fed into the production of a draft of that plan. The commission also submitted a project to the CPC to study modern structures, a survey of modern structures in Concord. And these structures have been neglected for a long time, so we're excited that that's hopefully going to be happening. We continue to work on various historic markers of houses around and structures around town. Recently, we became more aware of a very important historic house across from the library that may have been the site where the first enslaved person was arrested under the Fugitive Slave Act, among other things. So new things pop up about Concord all the time. We are either watching or engaged in ongoing projects related to a consultation, 106, Section 106 consultation with the National Park and about signage. And DPW now and other aspects of the town are involved in this review too. The commission becomes involved in a legally prescribed role for Section 106 of the Historic Preservation Act when federal funds are involved in a project. So a lot of those things come up to us. We are working to finalize the Wright Tavern historic preservation restriction. This has been going on for years, and I think we're in the final stretch. We're watching the Route 2A project and waiting for it to pick up again. It's on hold until after the 2025 festivities are complete. And recently, the commission wrote to the select board, I think, I couldn't find the final letter, requesting, well, offering our expertise in the area of historic preservation and requesting some kind of role in the identification of historic resources at MCI going forward.
Yep.
So that, let's see, a historical commission request for an archaeological study at parcel 1693, the site of the permanent memorial, is basically on hold until the current concept plan has become more tangible, and I think they have a ways to go with that. So we're putting that archaeological request on hold, and we continue to be involved in the review of what's going on at Hanscom Airfield once again. So we're busy.
Nancy, can you tell me, when you were talking about modern homes, what's the vintage? What do you mean? What do you mean by modern?
I have. I think what you're talking about mostly is post-World War II.
Okay.
I don't know. I got it. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know the exact date, but I can look it up, and I brought it with me because I knew I might have a question I couldn't answer.
You can tell me later. Great. Okay.
But post-World War II, and particular pockets in Conantum.
Yep. Okay.
And others that are scattered around town, actually, but with a focus on those.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Stefan.
Stefan Bader, Concord Housing Authority. A couple of thoughts came to mind as I'm sitting here. One, talking about the Peabody School immediately reminded me that the Concord Housing Authority has the largest number of senior apartments in the Peter Buckley School. Now, we call it Peter Buckley Terrace, but Peter Buckley School was once a school, so I'll just put that out there. The Housing Authority has received approval and funding from the state to assist with the reconstruction of the septic system at our Strawberry Hill Road property, and that will be commencing probably in the spring. But right now we're on a frequent pumping schedule because the septic system there has failed. But the good news is the money is coming from the state to address that. And other than that, things are pretty much going on as our regular business. The only other comment relative to things that people have said previously in this meeting is about the policy or the funding to buy small condominium units when they're available. The Housing Authority did receive funding for one unit at Forest Ridge Road last year. And on the advice of our accountants, we're waiting for probably until next fiscal year before we go ahead and take on another one, just to see how the finances and the operations play out. We don't want to get overextended by taking on more properties that don't have permanent replacement funding in the model. So we're being a little cautious on that side.
Great.
That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Stefan. Julie. Hi.
Good morning. Julie McClure, Vice Chair of Concord Housing Development Corporation. We are advancing on some important agreements, multi-party agreements, to ensure that the site where the Assabet River homes will be erected is properly conveyed. And so that involves working with various legal experts to ensure that that will convey to Habitat for Humanity, which will involve building 3 structures to be part of a 5-unit association. And anybody who likes doing hands-on work. We'll be seeking volunteers for that project in short order, and we'll also be partnering. They will also be partnering with Minuteman Tech, and students will be involved. So we're really excited about that project. We also still have a pause on Junction Village. We will be reviewing that pause in January. That was issued as an RFP a year ago, and very shortly thereafter is when the MCI decommissioning was announced. So we're looking into that project. We're considering how that project might be a part of MCI Concord, and what our role will be. And we are also looking carefully at a buy-down program in a similar light to what Stefan just described, but would involve an ownership model. And we have previously done projects like that you might be familiar with in West Concord at 930 Main Street. A home that was a modest home was purchased, retrofitted, and now is 2 units in an ownership model on Main Street in West Concord. Some folks in Concord's housing community have toured those units, and we've received very positive feedback about that project. So we hope to do some similar projects like that that involve looking to modest housing stock, making improvements to meet the affordable housing standard. And we are reviewing the guidelines around that with the other housing community members. We will have a housing round table, and that was announced by Keith previously. Okay, great. So thanks so much for your interest in housing, and I will be happy to pass this to whoever goes next.
I think we're done. Good.
Yeah, we made it.
I think we're, no one came.
Online.
Same people on, same people here. Okay, great, thank you. Don't forget, December 18th, bistro style get together here. Thank you. See you then.